Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Tip, and today we're going to be talking about some drop candidates for Week 6 of the NHL season for your fantasy team. Before we get started, guys, please leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. I would really appreciate the support. Jumping right into it, let's start with some forward options that you can drop from your team. First on the list, guys, is Jacob Vrana, Washington Capitals, 61% owned, and he is playing on that top power play, but it doesn't really seem to matter because he's not producing. So the ownership percentage of 61% seems a little bit high to me. Should probably be around the 50% range. Next is Tomas Hertl, San Jose Sharks, 56% owned, and he's now set to miss the next 14 games because he's on the COVID list. And even before he was put there, he was not doing so great. He really was not producing, so there's no real reason to hold on to him, especially if you don't have IR space. Next is Jordan Staal, Carolina Hurricanes, 56% owned, and I really liked him a couple weeks back when a lot of people were adding him because he was really getting that opportunity. Unfortunately, Teravainen has a concussion right now, so Svechnikov was moved off Jordan Staal's line. This makes Staal a lot less valuable fantasy-wise just because Svechnikov is such an elite player, and not playing with him really costs him a lot of points. Now, if you are in a deeper league, you can hold on to Staal until Teravainen gets back because his numbers should start getting back up a little bit. But if you're in a shallower league, there's no real reason to hold on to Staal. Next is Zach Hyman, Toronto Maple Leafs, 56% owned, and with Joe Thornton returning to the Toronto lineup, Zach Hyman is now relegated to a third-line role and no power play time. There's really no reason he should be above 56% owned. He's a decent player, but he's not that good. Next is Thomas Tatar, Montreal Canadiens, 48% owned, and it looks like they finally reunited that Tatar-Dano Gallagher line. But the thing is, Montreal is really not playing well right now, and until they turn stuff around, there's no reason to own a guy like Tatar who's not getting top power play time. Next is Victor Arvidsson, Nashville Predators, 41% owned, and it seems like no matter what they do in Nashville, they just can't get this guy to produce. They're putting him all over the lineup, they're putting him in so many different power play formats. He's just not putting up the points at this point. It's time to give up on Victor Arvidsson. Next is Blake Coleman, Tampa Bay Lightning, 40% owned, and that's a really high ownership percentage for him because he's a third liner. Yeah, he gets a tiny bit of power play time and he shoots the puck a lot, but at the end of the day, he is nothing more than a third liner and should not be 40% owned. That's really, really high. Next is Max Domi, Columbus Blue Jackets, 30% owned, and I think it's time to cut the cord with Domi. He's getting some fourth-line minutes right now, and that's really not doing much for his fantasy value. It's time to give up on him. Next is Anthony Mantha, Detroit Red Wings, 26% owned, and he's finally getting some top-line time with Larkin, but he's still not producing, and I'm really not down to hold Anthony Mantha anymore. It's just not a good idea. He's just not doing anything. It's not worth your time. Last but not least for forwards is Adam Lowry, Winnipeg Jets, 17% owned, and Dubois' arrival kind of pushed him down the depth chart. He's not on either power play anymore. He's only the third line center, so really owning him, there's no point. He barely shoots, barely blocks anything. Like, there's really no reason to have him on your team at this point. Jumping into some defensemen, guys, first is Tyler Myers, Vancouver Canucks, 51% owned. And that's a really, really high ownership percentage for Tyler Myers. The only reason I would have him on my team is if you're in a categories leagues and you need some penalty minutes. That's the only thing he's really useful for. Yeah, he's been putting up some points, but honestly, outside the deepest of leagues, you don't need Tyler Myers for point production. Next is Jacob Trouba, New York Rangers, 42% owned, and he's injured for the next 4 to 6 weeks. There's not really a point holding on to him unless you do have the IR space. Next is Justin Schultz, Washington Capitals, 37% owned, and like I've been saying for a few weeks now, Schultz was only added because of those COVID scares on Washington, gave him top power play time. He looked really good on that top power play, but he's not getting that anymore, so his points and his production will not stay as high as it has been, and his ownership percentage has been going down, just like I predicted. Next is Jacob Slavin, Carolina Hurricanes, 33% owned. And unfortunately, he's not getting power play time this year, not even second power play time. If you're looking for someone on Carolina to replace Slavin, you can probably pick up Brett Pesce because he's getting that second power play time, and he's also getting a nice amount of blocks. Next is Adam Larson, Edmonton Oilers, 31% owned. And I actually really like Adam Larson on your team if your league has the category of blocks in it, because he blocks a crazy amount. He's actually leading the league in blocks right now. If your league does not have blocks in it, you absolutely have to drop Larson because he's useful for nothing else. Next is Alexander Edler, Vancouver Canucks, 27% owned, and he's not playing on either power play this year, so he's really not generating any points. He's doing a decent amount of blocking, but other than that, there's no reason you should have him on your team. Next is Kevin Shattenkirk, Anaheim Ducks, 20% owned, and he's still getting a good amount of power play time, but Anaheim just isn't a very good team. There's no reason to have Shattenkirk on your team. Next is Matt Grzelcyk, Boston Bruins, 19% owned, and keep an eye on this one. If you have him on your team, then check if he gets that top power play time when he plays this weekend. If he doesn't, there's no reason to have him on your team. And last but not least is Eric Chernak, Tampa Bay Lightning, 17% owned, and I don't really get the ownership percentage. Chernak doesn't do a whole lot of anything, so he's a very easy drop from your team. I'm not going to be covering goalies today because there's not really any goalies I'd be super high on dropping this week just because there's a lot of uncertain situations. The only goalie that I could drop with a fair amount of confidence right now is UC Saros because it looks like Pekka Rinne has really taken the crease in Nashville. All right, guys, you've reached the end of the video. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. I really appreciate it. Please leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, leave a comment, ask me a fantasy hockey related question. I'll be happy to answer you. Until next time, guys, stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll catch you in the next episode of Fantasy Tipped.